Hi everyone, welcome back to Be Rich. It's me, Vinod. I hope you had a wonderful Saturday evening and you're ready to get into the week as we get started to wind off the weekend. It's probably the last week of June before we get into July, which will be the 7th month as we hurtle along towards the end of the year. I hope you've been investing consistently in the Tiffin Coffee range as we've been doing in Instagram, having these wonderful conversations. I did come live with Vishnu yesterday on MoneyPechu, and we thought we'll try and do a weekend, kind of like a morning session on Saturday mornings to generally talk about personal finance and investing and something, whatever you guys are interested in. Of course, that will be in Tamil because a lot of you requested that I do that in Tamil over there. So with my broken Tamil, I'm hammering it out over there. So do look out for that. If you want to join, do join. Those will all be live, whatever I do in MoneyPechu. They will not be pre-recorded, so that'll be a lot of fun if you do manage to catch those. Aside from that, yesterday I spoke about basically how you should approach this volatile time when you're talking about employment and how the job situation is, how employment situations are, and with all these global layoffs and forced retirements happening, how you should navigate this. If you've not done any kind of navigation at all, from the basics, I've given a 5-step approach which you can take, which should help you ease your mind and lower your stress. If you missed it, go watch it, and I would love your feedback on that. On that video's feedback, I'll drop it on Monday because today I've actually recorded this on Saturday as to give my team a break on Sunday. So today I want to talk about macroeconomic trends, things that don't make sense, but they are what they are. One is about gold, then we talk about taxes, then general panic which is there. First we'll hit about Europe, then we'll get into US, and then we'll wind it up with your questions at the end, your comments from the previous video from Friday. Why are the rich worried and why they seem to be running away from Switzerland is a question which I read an article on. It was rather interesting. First it happened in the UK where the wealthy, the affluent and the ultra-rich exited UK. Now this seems to be happening in Switzerland too. And why is that? Gold has been rallying like it's 1979 and the central banks are fighting inflation. But why? Because there's a slow shift which is happening and money is moving not because of taxes or interest rates. It's just moving because they feel there's a change in world order right now. And what is it specifically in Switzerland is something known as a Swiss tax shock. This coming November in Switzerland, there will be a referendum proposed where 50% inheritance tax is going to be slapped on the ultra wealthy if it passes. It hasn't passed. There's a party known as the Young Socialists who want to fund climate initiatives and they want it to be funded through this, where they feel the ultra wealthy can afford this. What bankers and lawyers are fearing is like how there's a flight of capital and investment in the UK. The similar thing is going to happen in Switzerland, and they might lead to an exodus of these people with their money, and they might all head to somewhere like Dubai, Italy, or Greece because it's more attractive. This happened in the UK when they scrapped the non-dom benefits, and this led to an exodus. Same way they fear this, and what they're saying is, situation is such that even talking about it, keeping the uncertainty there, is enough risk for this to happen, is what they feel. Questioning Switzerland's famous reputation of being safe, stable, and business friendly. So this is in the backdrop of what's happening in Switzerland. The Swiss central bank has dropped its interest rate to 0. This is the first country of such size to do, developed nation that is, to cut its interest rate down all the way to 0 like how it used to be, because this was during pandemic times when this happened. Post-pandemic, nobody's done this. Switzerland has dropped it because it's hoping to fight a lagging inflation and the surging Swiss franc. The surging Swiss franc has been hurting exports in Switzerland, and the traders were hoping actually for even a larger cut. And the bond yields moved, and the Swiss central bank has assured saying they're cautious about negative rates, but they said it's not out of consideration. So you can imagine the kind of political volatility which is there in Switzerland and monetary loosening which is also happening in tandem. Meanwhile, what's happening with gold? Gold has become the second largest reserve asset in the world behind the US dollar. Euro was there, euro has been pushed out and gold is sitting. So there's a clear sign there's a lack of trust in the traditional securities and assets that were looked at. And why is this happening? Central banks are tossing out everything and they all seem to be holding more and more gold. Central banks that is, have learned their lessons after what happened to Russia with the sanctions and freezing of assets and reserves. So they don't want to take the risk. So trillions of dollars are being parked now as insurance and not as investments. This means what? This is a hedge not on returns in gold, but against a system, because they see cracks happening on this, and this global order is seem to be in question. But despite all this, what I just said, the foreign holding on US Treasury has hardly moved. $36 billion in April is a modest compared to the past. But China reduced while countries like Belgium and Japan increased. So it's still a safe haven if you're looking at it, the US dollar. That is still what it is. So those of you are thinking, is the reserve currency going to go? It doesn't seem like that. Then finally, what's happening with the Fed and the Fed dilemma? We heard Powell came out and say, then interestingly enough, some of the other Feds came out and said they want the rate cut now. So it seems that the Fed's officials are also, they split whether to do the interest rate cuts now or they should wait. Some wanted right now, some wanted to wait. So Powell has come out saying there's no conviction in the path to rate cuts. But one thing is for sure is before 2026, there will be at least 2 more rate cuts. When is the question? So the moral of the story is what? There's a huge deficit in trust. And that is what's funny, because there's a huge deficit in trust. But Mr. Market doesn't seem to be waking up to this. He seems to be moving around as if like everything is nice, everything is great, and we're just waiting for some more good news. Anything which should have normally rattled the market, should have woken the market up from its sleep, seems to be not doing it. And finally, of course, the Iran-Israeli war, if you don't want to call it a war, the skirmish, but I feel it's pretty much on there, that also seems to not be shaking the market up. So this coming week is going to be very crucial in terms of geopolitics. The Iranians are hoping the Americans will be able to pull in Israelis and they'll come to some kind of a cessation in this conflict, and they'll come to some kind of a negotiation and sit on the table. If that happens, we can expect the market to rally and probably gold will correct. If the uncertainty persists and Trump does what Trump does, where he comes out and says, even I don't know what I'm doing, if he comes out and says things like that, then you can expect probably gold to keep boiling at where it is and the markets to remain really not moving forward or back. But for some weird reason, the market doesn't seem to be thinking it needs to go to flight of safety. So, I don't know. I would love to hear your opinion. Why do you think the markets are not reacting to what is happening? Because everyone is out there speculating. Most articles in the Financial Times and Wall Street and New York, everywhere around the world, seem to be a lot of speculation on why the market is doing what it's doing. Everyone is trying to understand it. I'm sure many years from now, there will be many classes conducted in history of economics on what happened here specifically and why it happened. And a lot of analysis will be poured into it. Or maybe some theses will also be awarded based on this analysis. But right now, being in the middle of it, it is rather confusing. Jason 021 says, can I transfer my money to US and invest in T-bills in short term and when markets correct, relocate it to stocks? Is that a good strategy? Because right now the market is uncertain. Yeah, it's a great strategy. If you're sitting in India, make sure the LRS guidelines you follow. You can take your capital and park them in T-bills and protect it there. And especially when markets are uncertain. But keep in mind the forex cost, the taxations, and make sure you do file your papers for that and claim your tax back if you can. If it's done well, you can do what you're doing. It is a strategy, but make sure it's done thoughtfully and not a knee-jerk reaction as you take funds out. Sankal 2211 says, a great company. He's talking about Berkshire Hathaway. Of course, that was a video. I totally agree. It's a great company and it's solid fundamentals. And that is why we're here, to offer our insight and reassure people. And I'm glad to see that you think it's a great company. Melvin Loros 151, please have the same format. Hey, I have nothing against Andrew. I get what Andrew's saying, I get it. You come to the channel, see the thumbnail, and you come with a certain expectation. And then here I am prattling and talking about the comments first instead of getting into the thick of it. He feels like I'm trying to milk the monetization on the platform. I'm not. I really am not trying to milk any monetization. I really don't need to worry about that. So I do understand. That's why I thought it's a great way to pivot. And there could be lots of people like Andrew out there. Andrew was brave enough to say it. A lot of people could have felt it and not said it. So that's why I flipped it. So people who want to hear the meat of it can hear the meat. And those of you who want to hang around for the fat can definitely hang around for the fat. Hey, thanks. Pasha also said the same thing, saying, knowledgeable and all that. Great. Thanks, man. Thanks for the encouragement. But we are all here to grow together. And even TCR investor seems to be saying, mic drop, subtle sarcasm. I wasn't being subtle at all. I understand is all I was saying. Sabri Shelter said, world histories, many companies' history, particular interest books recommend pannunga for pure beginner. Well, for a pure beginner, I've done a number of books we have spoken about. And if you're talking about interesting books to read about many company history, I would suggest first start with Anand's books. If you finished Anand's books, read about Intelligent Investor. Then after that, come back to me and I'll tell you a whole bunch of them. But history books, there are many. Any great history books. There are books about IBM, there's books about Sony, there are books, so many. I can prattle on and on. Maybe I should, on Instagram, put up a list of all the books on subject-wise. Maybe I should get my team down to do that. Let me figure that one out. Yes, IBKR video I am working on. It will take some more time, so please be patient, Mr. Saranan. Thank you, Varis, for all the love. Big hugs to you too, man. And Chitranjan Raman, thanks. I also appreciate that you like the new format where we do the meat, then we do the fat. And Equitas, I would also love to be part of this fan club which you're assembling. Please tell me where to stand in line. I'm ready to stand in line. Anyway, I hope, jokes apart, you guys had a great weekend and you managed to recuperate and recharge. Learn to control your anxieties and fears, even in investing, because everything and anything which we do is all based on psychology. And if you don't have the psychology pinned down, investing, working, everything becomes impossibly difficult. So learn to calm your mind down. I hope you have a wonderful week ahead. We have another 5 days of investing to get done, and we'll see the month out next weekend when I'm with all of you together. Thanks for watching it today, and I'll see you again soon tomorrow. Good evening.